We're together this afternoon with Canon Chuck Robertson from the presiding bishop's office. He's the canon for ministry on the Episcopal Church.
We call our team Team Beyond.
Team Beyond. Well,
Outer space here.
Here's a couple of Beyond questions.
Please.
From your perspective, looking at the Episcopal Church in the context of the wider community, it's been a very tumultuous 20 years, and it feels like we're coming to kind of a change. And what is it? How do you sense the relationship between the Episcopal Church and the rest of the community?
Vastly different, much improved. And what I really have seen is since 2015, and even before General Convention when Michael Curry was elected, in January 2015, 5 African archbishops came to New York. They initiated a meeting with us, and they sat down and said, "We are tired of being bullied by others into not being in partnership with you. We may not agree with you on everything, but we need one another if we're going to move forward together in Christ." That, to me, has marked a turning point that has just grown and expanded in so many ways. Now, the reality is there are still folks out there who really don't want much to do with us, but also they are not necessarily going to do much with certain others in the community as well, not just us. But I think what those 5 archbishops showed us in 2015, that what has grown now is the sense that partnership does not mean agreement. It means truly being there with one another in Christ, whether or not we agree on everything.
Well, that's actually, in some ways, the beginning of the proposition that God absolutely loves everybody. That is to say, and if that's the case, and to some extent we need to kind of work at the same thing, which is, it's not about agreeing with people, it's about loving and being able to be engaged.
Correct.
And I read in the press, the church press these days, about the upcoming conference, which will be next year, or the ACC meeting right now. Right now, there's almost no ripple at all. There's not much in the way of news happening. People, unlike previous meetings of the ACC or of the conference, where there was a lot of huff and puff, there doesn't seem to be much of that. What do you ascribe that to?
I think there's a desire on the part of many, and certainly for the organizers, for the Archbishop of Canterbury, the organizers of the Lambeth Conference, there's a real desire to find ways that we can move forward on things together. And so I think there's very little stomach to continue the battles of the past. Now, again, this does not mean that everyone's on board or on the same place in it. But certainly what we are seeing is a desire to move forward in new and fresh ways. There's certainly some new things that are being focused on as we look at creation care, climate change, all that goes along with that. We're seeing new voices from the Pacific, from Pacific Rim areas that have not always been out front speaking. We're seeing voices from Latin America. We're seeing voices talking about migration issues, whether it's immigration or refugees. So we're seeing new topics, new voices, and really kind of a new spirit.
So, to push a little bit further on this, there are 3 examples that I'd like to raise. One has to do with an issue that we're facing both in the Episcopal Church in Delaware, but I think throughout the church, which is what's happening to our small churches. And a number of them are essentially declining and are not likely to grow very much. And the bishop today is talking about growing the church in Delaware. But part of that growing may be to let go of some pieces that either for ecumenical reasons or for population change reasons or something, the church is not really growing stock, and strategies have to be arranged to do other things. An example of which, internationally, I just experienced. I was in the city of Puebla in Mexico, and it was a wonderful experience. But I looked for the Episcopal Church. Well, the Episcopal Church had been there; they had a building, and they sold it to an evangelical group who couldn't make it either, and they sold it to the Roman Catholic Church, and it's now a Roman Catholic parish. That is to say, the real needs of planting the church may not be related specifically to Episcopalians. And I again don't see much in the way of ecumenical conversation that sort of comes down to kind of a local level where we could think about our relationship with others, not only in the Anglican community, but in other churches from an ecumenical standpoint, and saying maybe we don't have to grow Episcopal churches in parts of Europe if in fact we encourage the church in a larger sense to be there and support them. How do we as a national church relate to international efforts that are not related?
Well, you're asking a lot here, Mark. So let me take a couple pieces. One thing is, I think the East Coast is understanding now, becoming to understand what the West Coast, or the western part, west of the Mississippi, is long known. When I was canon of the Ordinary of Arizona, before I became canon of the presiding bishop, we had a lot of churches that we were wrestling with the question of how are they going to survive financially and otherwise. Before simply talking about growth, numbers, money, one of the things that we began to ask is, what is the purpose? Why do you exist? Now, this is a question that should be asked of any church, an endowed church, a larger church, certainly a smaller church, but any church needs to be asked, why do you exist? Why now? Not why did you exist? What was your purpose for existing back 160 years ago? But why now? What purpose do you fulfill? What is your reason? And what we found was that some small churches which could not afford and never would be able to afford full-time clergy, the full-time packages that are needed, but they found that they had vital ministries that no one else in their small communities were able to do. So with those places, we got creative, and we found out how to think of ordained and lay ministry in whole new ways. And as a result, we were able to think in new ways about budgeting, and we were able to think of new ways to make use of the facilities they had. And in some cases, we found vital ministries come out. But again, in places where numbers would never be the issue, they would never be there. So I think the profound questions are, what is the purpose? Now, in other situations, in the same diocese, we found that a partnership with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America was more helpful. So we literally started having joint churches. And we found that that was its own challenge, but it also was an incredible opportunity. And we saw much come of that. I think that there's ways of asking those hard questions first. Why do we exist? What is our purpose now? Or to put it in more spiritual terms, what is it God might be calling us to be and do? And at times it means, yes, there's certain places that there's a time and a season, and it's time to actually say goodbye. But I think there's other times when it means getting creative in new and different ways and rethinking partnerships, or rethinking what is their point of existence in that place that may be different than simply having members.
This plays right into what's going on in the convention this year here, which is really great that you're here to be able to talk. We're looking precisely at the issue about how to grow the diocese and how to understand what growth is about. And the bishop has been clear, it's not about numbers, although that's one of the indicators, but it's only one of the indicators. The indicators are really about what ministry is about and what your reason for being is.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I raised this about you, with you, given the fact that you're dealing with international church relations, is I think that's probably true worldwide. We need to be really clear about ecumenical engagement as one of the other options.
Absolutely.
How we do church growth worldwide. And so, for example, joint ministries with Lutheran churches throughout the world is already going on. I know that's happening in Europe. There are places in Latin America where we may have to make relations with evangelical churches in Latin America. Don't mean in the United States exactly, but there are evangelical churches in the old tradition that we may find ourselves with Presbyterians and Methodists and Baptists in a different kind of way in terms of doing church growth. That's not about being a Episcopal church per se. It's about bringing Jesus Christ in whatever way we can into play in the world. So that was
or
kind
we may find that in certain places where other churches have the members, but the community is not being served in a certain way, it may mean that we just get creative and say, okay, we'll never be your rival, and maybe we won't even be in partnership per se, but let us do one thing that we can do really well. So there's all kinds of creative ways. But I think you're absolutely onto something, that we cannot simply think of this as if we were the 1950s church. Those days are gone. And so we have to come up. In fact, in my presentation, one of the things I say everywhere I go is a wonderful quote that I got from Eric Shinseki, former member of the Joint Chiefs staff years ago, who once said, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance a lot less.
That's wonderful, yeah.
Change is inevitable, or there's death. It is that simple. So I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that the bishop and it's exciting to hear how can we think in fresh ways, and it may mean more people in the pews and places, or it may mean rethinking what the church is in that way.
Well, this then leads into sort of the last piece of question that I had. As I understand it, and I'm a newbie in the language of this particular piece, but as I understand it, the invite, welcome, connect process plays itself out locally fairly well. There's a lot of ways in which you can
That's what I understand,
do
yes.
more creative ways of inviting, welcoming, connecting, so forth. And that this has to do with precisely the kind of church growth we're really talking about, which is not specifically about growing the Episcopal Church, it's about growing the presence of Christ in the community. How would you apply that kind of set of principles to our trying to relate as a diocese to churches elsewhere in the world, outside the U.S.? How would you see the processes of invite, welcome, connecting, working out on that kind of
Invite, welcome, connect. Mary Palmer can speak much more to that than I. It is definitely, I'm still a novice, although I love it. It's wonderful. But going to the real point of what you're saying, I think it's a matter of, just like we would with individuals in a parish, what is this person, what gifts do they bring to the ministry at hand? I think the same thing is true for congregations in the diocese, for a diocese within the larger church community. So what can Delaware, what does Delaware bring as its unique charisms? And what are the needs? How can another diocese in another part of the communion speak to us? How can another diocesan-like organization in another part of the body of Christ speak to us? How can we listen to each other and find some fresh new insights, possibilities, opportunities? So to me, what's exciting is the idea in the past used to be much more about exchange of money, or let's send someone to do something, kind of a one-shot deal. I think the real question is, how do our charisms, are we aware of who we are, what we're about, what we have to offer? Are we willing to be aware of what we lack and what someone else, because we're not the be-all, end-all. And when we realize that, then I think real partnership is possible.
Well, that plays into a sense that I have that one of the things about the invite, welcome, connect process is that it's a personal growth process, among other things, and that as we learn individually and as churches to do that, we're also learning something about who we are, who we really are.
Indeed.
And I've been working for some years now with a small community of people in Haiti about moving beyond giving and receiving as the model for relationship, and replacing it with something like being in love.
Oh, interesting.
Now, the being in love, you have to sort of couch that nicely, because culturally that becomes an interesting concept. But that's the idea. The idea is that what we need to do is to get to know one another as persons, and if we're churches, get to know one another in an incorporated kind of way or an incarnational way. Long before you ever talk about anybody doing anything to anybody for any kind of purpose. I mean, long before you start talking about what can I give you, or what do I receive, getting to know the person so that we're getting to know the corporate thing, the church, getting to know each other so that by the time you get to the issues, you already are committed to the person. Right? By the time you get to the issues of inter-church relationship, you're already in love with the church.
So I would say it's almost like being fellow pilgrims on a journey, and we don't yet know each other. And I want to get to know who am I traveling with.
Right. And so
if
it turns
we're
out
walking together, I want to know who's traveling with.
The most important story turns out to be the traveling together,
Absolutely.
not the destination, or all those other things.
Indeed.
Well, I look forward to your talk this evening, and I have some real sense of promise about the future of the Episcopal Church as it relates to the community. And I'm hopeful that there are going to be ways for us to do that locally as part of connecting, inviting, welcoming relationships with people throughout the area.
That is my hope as well. And I look forward to seeing how the Diocese of Delaware does that and models it for others.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, very much.